It's basketball season here in Kansas, and the preseason #1 Kansas Jayhawks get the season started in just less than 2 weeks, and we are here to talk about the season that we are all waiting for.
It was good, y'all. It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man.
And welcome into another episode of the KC Sports Authority podcast. If you're checking us out over here on our YouTube channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below, as we are officially over 1,000 subscribers, and we could not be more excited and grateful for that. So thank you guys so much to everyone that has followed along the way. And if you're new to the show, welcome. We hope you enjoy it. We've got all of your KU sports, Chiefs, Royals, and sports betting content. And here soon some more basketball with the NBA season coming up. So thank you for checking us out. I'm your host, Keegan Russell. I got JB Merker, Austin Ecker, and Spencer Gray with me tonight. Full house to talk the KU basketball season that is coming up. Fellas, first off, it is good to see all of you. I have not been on a podcast with this guy in a long time. So Spencer, welcome back to the podcast. You know, you were naked face last time. Now you're full grizzly beard. How's it going?
It's good. I was in hibernation waiting for basketball season to start, and I've emerged with a lovely beard, so it's going well.
Well, we're excited to have you back. JB, Austin, guys, let's start with this. KU football gets a massive win this weekend. I know the season as a whole still probably lost. We're still frustrated that that win came a little too late. But did they do enough to get our interest level back? And how much longer will they keep it? Because the #1 ranked Kansas Jayhawks men's basketball program is about to hit the hardwood courts here the next 2 weeks to kick off their season.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit pessimistic with this one. They didn't do enough to win me back fully. They really didn't. Now, I will say this. I think there's a lot of KU fans that will be bought back in, and I think a lot of KU fans are excited about the win, rightfully so. It's good to finally be back in the win column. Here's my problem with this win. Houston was just not the right team to beat to really get, the juices flowing again. I mean, they're not the best opponent. They're one of the lighter opponents on our schedule, so it really doesn't feel like it carries much weight to win against Houston. All due respect to Houston, I just think when you look at them compared to everybody else, like K-State, like a Iowa State, Colorado, these games that are coming up, man, those games are going to be so much more impactful if we can win. It really wasn't enough for me. I will say this, though, and I tweeted it out. I said I might just be bought back in if we beat K-State. And it's pretty darn good to get the win a week before our game against K-State so we can kind of ride that momentum and hopefully come out with the win, because if we win, I think emotionally as a fan, for me, and as a fan of KU football, I don't care if we win any other game. We can lose all the other games. I don't care. If we beat K-State, I don't care. If you want to call it our Super Bowl, I don't care. You can make fun of us and make fun of KU fans that consider the KU K-State game our Super Bowl. I don't care. Because guess what? If it's our Super Bowl, so be it. If we win the Super Bowl, we won the Super Bowl. Okay? So I'm just saying, I think if we beat K-State, I will be bought back in. But what about you, Austin?
I mean, yeah, I feel the exact same way you do. I mean, especially with the Houston game. But I mean, it was good to see them finally win. You had Kobe Bryant having 3 interceptions. I thought that was great. Both him and Cornell Wheeler got those 4 interceptions. Cornell got one of them, and both of those guys were like doubtful. Like nobody knew if they were gonna really play or not yesterday, and they did, and they got some interceptions, and I was really impressed with that. But I was just happy with the fact that that KU was able to bounce back and get a win. I mean, Houston's not the greatest team on paper. You look at, how they've done throughout the season. They did go on the road and beat TCU, who KU lost to. Well, I'd argue that KU lost to the refs that weekend. You can call me salty. You can say whatever you want, but I mean, it is what it is at this point. But, you live and learn, you move on. But K-State coming up. It's going to be a tough game. Everybody knows what happened last season. KU figured out how to beat K-State with Cole Ballard in at quarterback, but this is a completely different game. This is a new team that KU is going to go up against. This time it's in Manhattan. Bill Snyder Family Stadium is going to be intense. It's going to be rowdy, and they're going to be ready. But I do have a little bit of optimism about this game, but I've got to see it to believe it. That's kind of where I'm at. Devin Neal has a chance to become KU's all-time leading rusher next weekend. Hopefully that'll happen. I think that'll be good. There's a lot to look forward to. And, I think a lot of the guys that were on the team last year, they also remember what happened. And, if you go back and watch, the press conferences, after the game, everybody seemed, a little ticked off about it. And hopefully they can use that as as motivation to go out and pull off an upset. Now, I wouldn't say that KU doesn't have a chance at all. I think they do. So to say that KU doesn't have a chance against K-State, with this game being on the road would be an asinine statement, because I think, K-State's pass defense isn't great. And you saw Jalen Daniels slinging it around. He looked like himself finally. We've been waiting for him to have that type of performance, and he did. I mean, he that touchdown pass he threw to Quentin Skinner, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I mean, that's a throw that we saw Jalen Daniels make the past 2 seasons. And I don't know if I saw a whole lot of that, leading up to the game. So
that's right.
I was very impressed. I mean, getting a win in the Big 12 this season seems pretty hard. And, KU's had to learn that the hard way. Everybody thought that, this is going to be an easy schedule, because you look at how they did last year. And, if we keep it going, they're better. But it hasn't turned out that way. So, but I think it'll be an interesting game. And I expect K-State to win. But I mean, for all the 30, plus seniors, however many seniors they have on this team this year, I think the thought right now is how do they want to, go out? Do they, it's like, if you beat K-State, it's a pretty good way to go out of your,
Yeah, that's something that players have not done in 15 years. So that's still something.
I know that needs to be the thought. That needs to be the mindset. Do you want to go out and never beating K-State? Do you want to go out, leaving, the KU fan base in agony, for another year? Do you really want to put them through this whole thing for the next 365 days?
Or do you want to end the
That's going to be the question that they're going to be thinking.
That's the motto this week: end the streak. Set the record books, Devin Neal, but end the streak. And quick shout out to Devin. Boy, did you just destroy that number 6 on Houston.
You look good.
Oh man, that was nasty. That was dirty. It was mean. It was beautiful. Lovely touchdown. Can't wait to see him break the record next week. That's why I think KU football still has our attention for at least one more week. Whether we feel KU can beat K-State or not, I think we're all going to be tuned in for that game, and especially to see Devin break multiple touchdown records, multiple records. He'll have the all-time scoring touchdown if he gets one more, and he's got 74 yards away or 75 yards away from breaking the all-time scoring record. So super pumped for that, looking forward to that. And that just reminds me real quick, we haven't talked enough about it, and I'll have some more stuff coming out in our social media here soon about it. But now that Jalen Daniels is getting back on track and Devin's about to go down as the greatest running back in KU football history, just a quick reminder, we did hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, and that does mean that we're giving away a signed Jalen Daniels jersey and a signed Devin Neal jersey. I will have the details on how you can be the winner of those on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok here shortly this week. Now that has officially happened, we want to give it a week or two to make sure we stayed above 1,000. But we are super excited for that, super grateful for you guys for subscribing, and do want to give those jerseys away. So stay tuned. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at KCSA Pod to find those details. All right, enough about football. They got their 7 to 8 minutes there. Tonight's all about KU basketball. Spencer, I'm going to start with you. It is now basketball season. We are 2 weeks away from the first official game. They've got KU, Arkansas, Coach Self, Coach Calipari, preseason game this upcoming week, charity event. What I want to kick off with is, are we feeling like this year, as the number one preseason team, will go against the history of KU basketball preseason number ones, that this is the year that this team breaks the curse and actually goes for a deep run into March Madness and gets over it.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in the superstitious stuff like that. I don't think it has anything to do with how a team performs. I think with being the preseason number one comes expectations, and that can add pressure. That can add, a lot of unneeded stress into how you're going to perform. And obviously, KU already has a pretty big, pretty high expectations being the program that we are. But I think this is, if you look at the roster up and down, I mean, everything looks good on paper. And I think we have a roster that will allow for a lot of really fun lineups and a lot of really exciting offense. There's a lot of different ways this team can play. If you look up and down the roster. So I think if there is a team to do it, this team is built to do it. It really, to me, is going to boil down to health, and it's going to boil down to development of players from last year. If you can see guys like McDowell and El Marco take steps and kind of plug in and be the pieces that we need, because I don't think there should be any doubt on the guys that are already proven. I think KJ is going to play great. DeJuan's going to obviously do his thing. So to me, it's those guys kind of on the side, the unknown guys, Marquise Passmore coming in. If they can step up and do their jobs, I think that the team's definitely built for a very late run into March.
Yeah. On paper, like you said, this should be one of the most talented, one of the most athletic, one of the better shooting teams, and one of the deeper teams we've seen in a while. And I know we have said that about teams in the last several years. This has to be that year because this team is just bleeding with talent all over. Now, some of that talent we might not see a lot of up front. Obviously El Marco with the knee injury is going to miss the whole year. We're not going to see that. There's enough guys that you don't know who's going to play and who's not going to play this year. So let's just quickly recap, go over the roster again since the last time we talked. Nothing new has been added to the team since the Diggy Coit move that we talked about several weeks back. We know that there's the Shaq Moore injury to the broken foot. He is a couple weeks away. From everything I've seen, they haven't talked a ton on it. But at the time it was announced, they said it was about a 6 to 8 week timetable, and that would put him to be back in playing on the court about the start of the season. Now we know it'll probably take several weeks for him to get up to speed, so it may be late conference play, early Big 12 play before we see a lot of action from him. But yeah, this roster is pretty solid. You've got DeJuan Harris returning for his 12th year as the point guard of Kansas, and we're super excited that the super senior DeJuan Harris is back. I kid about the 12 years, but he has been here a long time. And he's Bill Self's guy, always is, always will be. You pair him with your other super senior and Hunter Dickinson, who's preseason Big 12 Player of the Year, should be preseason All-American, preseason favorite to finalists for the Wooden Award, all those types of awards again. You bring back KJ Adams, who again on paper does a lot of great things for KU. Now we can sit here and talk about the trio of those guys and how they work together on the court has been ugly at times, but those three are all back. We know that for sure. Bill Self goes out and has another monster offseason in the transfer portal, bringing over Zeke Mayo, probably one of the best lower Division I school players in the country. And up to this point, Bill Self has said has been the best player in the preseason. Now, I know Self says a lot of things preseason to send messages, but Zeke has looked the part in what little tape we've seen. He can shoot, he can score. He can go out and rebound. He can jump. He can run. He's athletic. So really love that move for the hometown guy to come back and put on a Kansas uniform just like he dreamed of his whole life. You go out and get championship contender caliber players. Rylan Griffin comes over, one of the best defenders in the country last year, goes into a Final Four, one of the most important players on that Final Four team. We know he can shoot. We know he can jump. We know he can defend. Looking forward to seeing KU's three-point shooting uptick a lot this year just with those two. Then you go get a guy in a dog like AJ Storr, who should be that kind of dog guy, a guy that could go get you 30 if you need him to, but a guy you're also hoping will play the Bill Self system, learn to defend, be physical, go out there and rebound. Probably going to play a little bit out of position this year with seeing him at the four a lot, but a lot of exciting players there. You've got a fun incoming freshman class, I think. Marquise Passmore, I don't know how much we'll see of him this year, but he's got one or two big-time dunks in the highlight reels coming up this year. I think he's going to be really scrappy. He could be a guy like KJ his freshman year who gets a few spot minutes and does a lot with him. and forces his way into the lineup. Many people are saying his trajectory is Ochai Agbaji. Gets the red shirt pulled as a freshman. In this case, he probably won't be redshirted, but doesn't get a lot of attention. But when he does get in there, you can see he's just oozing with potential. So super pumped for him. And of course, Flory been doing good. Bill Self has said Flory might be the best freshman big man prospect they've had in a long time, since Joel Embiid. And then we know Joel Embiid was a little bit of a late bloomer. But he's also saying this might be the best freshman prospect we've had since Josh Jackson. Flory, I think, has also grown already since he got to KU. I think he's added at least an inch or two to his height. I was looking at that preseason team photo, and he looked the same height as Zach Clements, who's listed at 6'7". And at the time Flory signed, he was listed at 6'8" or 6'9". So I don't know if he has gotten taller, but he looks like a monster. And he's going to force his way into the lineup. So really excited to see what Bill Self does with Flory and Hunter. Again, Zach Clements is back. They go get the transfer in Shaq Moore, who Rylan Griffin said was the toughest defender he went up against all of last season. And Bill Self has said he might be the best on-ball defender on the team, which is saying a lot because we know DeJuan Harris is still on this team. So KU, in theory, should be way better than last year. And, of course, they also go get Diggy Coit late in the offseason to add another scoring bench punch off the bench. And Self has also said he's 5'8", he's the smallest guy on the court, but he thinks he's the biggest, baddest dude out there. So you'll love that. So yes, on paper, love what this group has, and I know I'm already missing somebody in the rotation there because this roster is deep. Again, we'll probably talk another day about the rotation. But what excites you most about this team heading into the year? What are you guys looking forward to about the kickoff to the college basketball season? Who are the guys that stand out to you on this team, and what's just the most exciting part about this upcoming season?
Dude, I think for me, it's 3-point shooting. We've been missing that. I mean, you get a guy like Zeke Mayo and Rylan Griffin, and now all of a sudden we're going to be a threat. There's so many people on the court at one time that can really shoot it. When I look at last year's team, I mean, that really was non-existent. You know, if you have to guard one guy that's a threat on the perimeter in Johnny Furphy, I mean, what are the possibilities of what will open up? I mean, it almost seems endless what we can do with all this talent on our team. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think that was a big concern. We definitely addressed it. We are so deep now. We have such a huge roster of capable players that it doesn't really scare me that we are a little bit banged up. I mean, now Marco, man, I was really excited for the jump that he would have taken this year, or potential jump that he would have taken this year, and him being hurt kind of blows. But you know what? We've got the depth. We can definitely make up for that and then some. And certainly, you know, Keegan, you mentioned all the exciting young talent, all the exciting freshmen coming in. I think more than anything, I'm looking at the season like, who the heck do you start? That's always been the off-season question of who's the starting five, who's the starting 5+1, who's the starting 6. I mean, because I just think there's too much talent, but in a good way, too much talent on this team, and it'll be interesting to see what's the starting 5 toward the end of the season.
Yeah, JB, you mentioned the 3-point shooting and those things and having that deep of a roster. And I certainly hope that those two things, you know, play out to be that way. Because, you know, I think some people thought that maybe we had some depth last year and it did not turn out that way. But, I mean, I'm really excited to watch AJ Storr. That's a guy that I've been eyeballing for a little bit. I mean, I've been watching his highlights, you know, for quite a while he was at, you know, Wisconsin. And, you know, he had that left-handed dunk. I mean, it was unbelievable. I'm really excited to see him, you know, make some plays. And you mentioned the starting 5. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they open up the season. But I think it's a good problem to have, you know, figuring out, because you have many options to roll with. But I'm very excited about all the new transfers. You know, young talent, of course. You know, they'll work their way into it, you know, as the season goes on. But I just think it's going to be important to, like, you know, find that level of consistency, making sure that we knock down our 3-pointers. You know, we don't need them banging off the top of the backboard. You know, you guys know who I'm talking about. But I certainly hope that we can finally get the 3-point shooting, figured out, and we've got the guys that can fix that. But for me, it's like I got to see it to believe it. Now, we haven't seen them play yet, and we'll get our first look at them, this upcoming weekend. But right now I'm in a state where it's like I'm excited about the basketball season, and obviously it's preseason, number one, all this stuff, but I just do not want to get ahead of myself. I don't want to get ahead of myself because when you start getting ahead of yourself and when all this stuff, like, you're more than likely going to get disappointed. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be the case, but I definitely think that this team can take the steps that they need to play better in terms of the 3-point shooting and everything. So, but I think finding that level of consistency is going to be very important. We got the talent, all that stuff, but consistency is going to be the most important thing, because I don't know if KU had that, last year.
So, Spencer, if we have one weakness, what is the weakness on this team?
I think a big, not a potential weakness is you have a lot of guys coming from other schools, and so there is going to be an adjustment period, and Bill Self plays a very specific style, and he has a very specific structure. So you have a lot of guys that are really only getting the off season to prep going into it. Now, I will say, to counteract that, a lot of these transfers are experienced guys. We got a lot of seniors, junior seniors, upperclassmen. So I do think that should be enough to kind of counteract that. But I know we're going to have I'm going to predict a very bad loss early in the season, and everybody's going to freak out, and, we're going to overreact. But I think that's just going to be the growing pains with this team. And when you watch them play towards the end of the season compared to the first couple games, I think you're going to see a very big difference. Because I think they're going to come together nicely.
Do we lose to Arkansas?
Who cares?
It's just an exhibition game.
I care.
They're going to change the rules mid-exhibition game anyway. They'll probably cut it after a while. All right, we've seen enough. Great. Thanks for coming out, guys. Thanks for all the money you gave us. All right, see you later. Because I really don't know what we'll expect in that. I think we'll see a little bit, but you're not going to see a lot of set design plays or anything. It's just going to be, hey, how do we look against other talent, and can we run up and down the court without getting hurt? I don't think you're going to see either side really do a ton, other than can we do enough early on to excite the fans, get some financial dollar support for the charity stuff they're doing, and then it'll be all right. Let's just put on a good show and get out of here.
Hey, I have someone at work that is an Arkansas alum, and I've been embarrassed too many times by the School of Arkansas in basketball and football. So
yeah,
I need this win. And especially now that John Calipari is the coach, I still hate
they're going to be – I think they'll be good this year. I think KU's got more talent, more depth top to bottom. But I think Arkansas – this is not an Arkansas podcast, of course, but Arkansas's got a good chance at having a deep run in the SEC this year for sure. He's bringing half of his team over with him. He's got some good returning players, some experience, some good young talent. Calipari always gets the talent, but always give me the coaching edge to Bill Self for sure. But I'm not thinking too much on that game.
Okay.
I'm looking at the regular season, but I do want to ask you guys this, and then we're going to get into the schedule a little bit, talk about Bill Self, again, is going to have one of the top 5 toughest schedules in college basketball. That's just what he does, especially with the way that the conferences have changed and adding a lot of teams. But of the new guys, and Spencer, I think you hit the nail on the head that chemistry could play an issue early on, and not just chemistry with each other, but we know how Bill Self operates. If you don't want to do things his way, you ain't playing. We've seen that plenty of times with incoming freshmen. MJ Rice couldn't do it. Heck, we saw it with a preseason player of the year candidate transfer in Remy Martin, who didn't play much of the regular season. And when he did, it wasn't a lot of minutes because he didn't play a system until I think Bill finally caved some and said, all right, I will take what Remy does and figure it out, but I'm still going to fight tooth and nail the game and play my way. So we know that could play a factor. So my question then is, with these incoming new guys, who do you think is the biggest question mark in that transfer class or freshman class that we might sit here after the first couple of weeks and go, man, it's just not clicking? Like, for me, I feel like it's AJ Stewart. I don't know if he has the most expectations across the group, but he seems like the guy that could just come in to, like, So I had somebody mention this to me, and then I went back and watched it. Does everybody remember, like 15 years ago, the very popular YouTube video of a certain online gaming system or game where they're all sitting there as a team planning how to go attack the boss, and then this dude just goes, Leroy Jake, and it just starts running in. Like, to me, that is AJ Store, the guy who's going to go, hey, you know what? Screw it.
Yep.
I'm just going to go do things my way. So I could see it being that, but I also think he's played enough basketball now that he could adjust. So for me, I think that question mark is AJ. How consistent is he going to be? How is Bill Self going to play him? Is Bill Self going to send a message to him after 1 or 2 games if he's not playing defense and he sits him and starts Zeke at the 2 and Rylan at the 3, and AJ's coming off the bench and he gets 15 minutes? Or is AJ going to, have one of those games and the next night he's going to go off for 25, but then he's going to have one of his 3 for 20 shooting? So for me, I think the question mark is AJ, but open the floor to your guys' thoughts.
I will agree with AJ Store, and we've talked a lot about like Dwan, KJ. We talked about like, oh, this player was created in a lab. He's a Bill Self prototype. The opposite of that is a slightly inefficient volume scorer with who's got a lot of talent in shot creation. That is the antithesis of Bill Self, and that's who AJ Store is. He's got a ton of talent offensively, but there's been inconsistencies on defense, and he's been slightly inefficient too. If you look at his scoring, that is the opposite kind of player that Self wants. Now, I think he's talented enough to adjust his game, and let's everyone be honest that sometimes I wish Bill Self would allow for talented shot creators to, hey, if there's 10 seconds left in the shot clock, go one-on-one with your guy. And, if you miss one defensive assignment, I don't have to yank you for the rest of the game. Sometimes we wish he would ease up a little bit, but obviously he's, the best coach in the country, so we won't question him. But I would agree with you that stores the question mark here.
I will say I do think the AJ to Remy comparison is a little different in the sense of Remy wasn't the only guy on that team that had to go get a bucket. You had Oach, you had CB, you had McCormick, and Dewan knew how to facilitate that offense really well. So you trusted him. But Remy had to be the spark plug of energy you needed. This case, the way I think Bill Self has structured this roster, we still know it's going to be Hunter Dickinson first. And heck, I think KJ might even be the second option on offense, just the way the offense facilitates. But you bring in Zeke Mayo, who can be a walking bucket. And if he is allowed to operate in space and do his own thing, he can go do that. So I don't know if there's as much pressure necessarily on AJ to be the scoring threat early. I think the hope is that, hey, we know what you're capable of. And AJ, you're going to have nights. He's probably going to have a couple Andrew Wiggins games where it's just give me the ball, get out of my way, let me go win it for you. But then he's also going to have nights where you're going, my gosh, we got to get the ball out of his hands and let Zeke facilitate more. So I think the situation's different because you have a guy like Zeke who can take some of the scoring threat off of you, whether he's starting or coming off the bench. And you've got 2 bigs that you can go through when need. Last year, you didn't have anything. Kevin gets hurt. Furphy couldn't drive, couldn't do anything off the dribble. He was a spot-up shooter. It was, if Hunter's not clicking, you're screwed, and you better hope KJ goes off for 20 points and Dewan hits a couple threes. This year, it feels like, and Bill Self said it in the preseason during his press conference last week, somebody asked him about, what is he looking forward to about this team compared to others, and he said options. Now, it didn't come across very positive in the moment, but he was meaning as we have a lot of ways we can play, and we have a lot of guys I can put out there. And I don't think he really said the word trust, but I think he got a little bit excited thinking, there's a lot I can do with this roster that I haven't been able to do years past. So I think that's still exciting, despite the fact that, yes, chemistry could be an issue early on. But again, you've got a lot of upperclassmen guys. These are not all freshman transfers. These are all junior, senior transfers that have played experienced basketball and played at the highest level. So I'm not too worried about it. But yes, to me, it feels like AJ's the guy that you're going to have a couple of games where you're just scratching your head going, dude, just come on. Just fit the system. Or, coach, why aren't you letting AJ go play his game?
See, what worries me about that, and AJ Store in particular, is the guy. I mean, this just kind of crossed my mind. What if he's a volume guy that needs volume to be productive? And what does it mean when you take a volume guy who's used to being the guy on his team, and you put him in a system where he's going to have far less volume and not have to necessarily be the guy? I mean, he would only be called upon to go get a bucket in certain situations, but he could be called upon. Zeke can be called upon. Rylan Griffin can be called upon. Hunter, the star of our team, the guy who's supposed to be a preseason All-American guy, that finalist for the Wooden Award, like you mentioned. It just scares me that if he doesn't have the volume, does he actually produce with what volume he does have? I don't know, but maybe I'm reading too much into it. Am I reading too much into it, Austin? What do you think?
No, I mean, I brought up AJ's store to, kind of talk about like just what we're looking forward to. And I think you guys kind of hit the nail on it with AJ.
Yep.
I definitely agree. And that was, that is one of my concerns as well. But I mean, he's a playmaker, and he get you a basket if you need him to. And I definitely think he'll make an impact. May not be right away, but definitely he'll make an impact. But I mean, one thing to note about AJ, I mean, this isn't his first time transferring. I mean, he started his career at St. John's, and then he had to transfer to Wisconsin, had to work his way into a new system and all that. So this isn't the first time that
three high schools in a row before that too.
Oh, I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, this isn't the first time that AJ is going to have to adjust to a new system. So I think there is a level of concern for that, but this isn't the first time that he's gone through something like this. So I think he'll, if he doesn't click on right away, I think he will later on.
Yeah, and if you had to have a coach to figure it out, who do you trust more?
Bill Self.
Bill Self, exactly. So, okay, a lot of stuff we can talk about the roster. We're going to try over the next couple weeks before the season gets going, do a couple shorter episodes talking about the roster itself, how the minutes might shake up, maybe who the most important Jayhawks are, guys that could surprise us this year, all that kind of stuff. So, let's get into the schedule, and then we'll get out of here for tonight. This schedule's stacked. I mean, you got North Carolina, Michigan State in a 4-day span. You've got Duke, number 7 in the country. You've got Creighton at home. You've got the Missouri game at Mizzou. They're not as talented, but it's still old rivalry game on the road. That's a pretty stacked non-conference schedule before you even get to the conference schedule, which just has like 10 potential top 25 teams. So as you guys look across the schedule, I was saying this to a buddy last week. I love the fact that we have these big games at the start of the year. I think it's great for college basketball. More teams should be doing it. Get the biggest names and the biggest teams on stage early so you capture as much attention as possible, because we know how sports work. NFL is king. NFL gets all the viewership. So you got to do anything possible to get your eyes on it. I love a KU win 100-55 opening week, but I also love seeing them grind out a victory or grind out a loss against a tough team. And these early season tournaments have been fun. The Champions Classic has been great, but my goodness, it doesn't get any better than Kansas, North Carolina, 2 of the oldest blue bloods to kick off the season. So thoughts on the non-con schedule? Obviously that game stands out the most, but what's your guys' thoughts on this heavy front-loaded schedule that Bill Self's been doing the last few years?
I mean, it's normal. We are used to that, right? But when you look at North Carolina and Michigan State and Duke, you got to think we lose at least one of them. I don't know which one we lose. Gosh, I feel like we've got Tom Izzo's number. I feel like we have North Carolina's number. I think if it's me, I'm kind of looking at Duke as being the loss between those 3. But Mizzou, I'm not worried about. Creighton, I think that's a popular pick to take us out. So wouldn't be shocked there either. But this year, I'm going to try, if these losses do happen, I'm going to try to remain calm and just worry about conference play. But what do you guys think?
You mentioned the Creighton game. Yeah, that's the game that if KU's going to lose any games in the non-conference schedule, I think Creighton would be the game that KU would lose. I mean, it's a midweek game. It's at Creighton. I mean, that's going to be
honestly
tough.
That's really cool. I think that's great that KU is going to go on the road there. That gives Creighton one of the biggest games they'll ever have at home. That's awesome. I've looked at figuring out if that's a game I could go to, because I think that'd be so entertaining to go watch up there.
Yeah, and then going back to the North Carolina game, if this game was not being played at Allen Fieldhouse, I would pick KU to lose. But I mean, you go back and look at the UConn game. I feel like this North Carolina game is a lot like that.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that this was in Allen Fieldhouse, game 2 of the season to kick off the year. I mean, usually this is a neutral court game to start the year, but no, you get the two of the oldest programs at home in Allen Fieldhouse. It's going to be juice. They said, last year that UConn game might have been the loudest it's ever been. There's no way this game does not become the loudest game in KU basketball history, top to bottom, start to finish. Maybe that Thomas Robinson block still always hangs up there as loudest moment, but this has got to be probably one of the most anticipated or exciting home matchups in program history, or at least for most of us in the last 20 and 25 years. Definitely the Bill Self era.
Well, I'm interested to see, because they took away 1,000 seats when they did this arena renovation.
Supposedly they also shifted the rows forward.
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
So the student section is closer now. It's about 10 feet closer.
I'm interested to see how loud Allen Fieldhouse gets this year with the capacity reduction. Some people out there they say that if you reduce the capacity, maybe it makes the environment louder. I'm interested to see how that plays out, and because I know people out there are worried that like losing 1,000 seats is going to like hurt like the environment or whatever. I don't think it will. I mean, for example, you look at Baylor's new basketball arena. I believe that arena sits like 7,000 fans. It's not much, but I've heard for people that have gone out there for a game, like it gets pretty loud. So I don't know. We'll figure it out here in a couple of weeks.
Essentially, they just took the people that are in the nosebleed corners that really can't do a lot from up there anyway and shifted them.
Right.
Again, I wasn't at late night myself to see all the renovations firsthand and how the seats lay out, but I've heard different parties say, "Hey, it looks better. The seats are closer. That corner was useless anyway." I think some of it too. There was talk that on the games, that even though the games are always sold out, you would see that corner be a little empty-ish, and it just doesn't look good. So instead of allowing that to appear on camera, we'll just put a wall up there and put a video board to get advertising dollars. So we don't need to talk about the renovations itself, but yeah, game wise, I think that's exciting. Then you get Michigan State right after that, and of course, then Duke in the Champions, or I can't even remember. No, Michigan State's the Champions Classic. Duke's the NIL whatever event they're calling that it out in Vegas this year.
Yeah, Vegas.
And then you got Creighton on the road. So yeah, big time matchups there. And then non-con, which I think is great because that preps you for conference play and then preps you for NCAA tournament where you can get to tough competition early. But yeah, Big 12 play is going to be another nightmare monster schedule again. This is the SEC football schedule for college basketball. You've got the additions of Arizona State, Colorado, and Arizona. KU ends the season with Arizona, who should be one of the 10, 12 best teams in the country all year. I think right now, preseason, you've got 7 or 8 Big 12 teams in the top 25, and I think 10 in the top 40 for Ken Palm preseason ranking, something like that. So this is going to be an insanely deep schedule, deep roster. Iowa State's a top 5 team, Houston's a top 5 team, Baylor top 8. Arizona's in the top 10. So you've already got almost half of the Big 12 studs all in the top 10 in college basketball as a whole. Thoughts on the new additions? I actually think it's cool to see Arizona State, and Colorado come into the Big 12. I thought it was cool to see Houston because you're getting good quality programs in. And as much as that makes it harder to win a Big 12 championship, it does strengthen the conference, and it makes the basically like there's no night off in Big 12 basketball play anymore.
There has been no night off in Big 12 basketball play for 10 years or longer. It's probably, I don't know. I feel like for me, I'm a little bit salty about it. I think you said it right when you said that these are good programs, good basketball programs coming in. It's good for the conference.
Is it good for Kansas? I don't know.
Is it good for Kansas? Not at all. That's kind of a loser's mentality.
Is it good for Big 12 dollars? Yes.
Yeah, and I don't. For me, it bothers me just because, like, I was just talking about this with my father-in-law the other day. Man, I wish we can go back to 10 teams. I don't care. Let's just pick the best 10. Like, I don't care about location, but let's go back to 10 teams. I always loved the Big 12 promo where they were like, 10 teams, 18 games. Like, they play everybody twice. Like, it was perfect. Loved it. And it makes the conference schedule itself equal for everybody. And now it depends on who you play. And some schedules are lighter, some are not. Just kind of bothers me. I don't know. Maybe I'm a Big 12 purist, and I wish
Those
it
are
was just
definitely the most conference games we've ever seen. They will have 20
yeah.
conference games.
For me, it's like I I just want it to make sense, and I think it's a whole other discussion. But I'll just say this: that there needs to be some kind of massive NCAA overhaul and just like say I'm going to realign every single conference and make it make sense for everybody. But that's a whole other conversation. Um, I mean, I'm sure as heck, excited about these games that we're going to have. If assuming that we win them, we're going to look like the most unstoppable force in college basketball. So that's the goal.
So, a question I have is I don't know how deep you guys have dove into the schedule, but what do you think the toughest Big 12 game on the schedule is this year? I mean, obviously we have some big ones at home, but like I'm looking at road games. You've got at Houston, of course.
Yeah.
You've got at Iowa State. Those to me are the two toughest environments to go play in, I'm thinking. But Baylor's a top 10 team. K-State's not top 25 ranked right now, but I'm pretty confident they will be a top 25 team at some point this year. They've got a lot of good players. Cincinnati's a top 25 team, and we haven't seen what that really looks like that much yet. KU playing out there, they've only done a couple years. So what is the toughest game on this Big 12 schedule?
Man, it's got
I
to be
don't.
at Houston, man. The second to
Yeah.
last game of the season, going to that tough environment.
Could be playing for the Big 12 regular season championship for that
Exactly.
game.
So,
Yeah.
and then you got to go
Monday
to
night.
afterwards. So
Oh, yeah, it's
Well,
a
I
Monday
think
night game too.
I think the answer is any team that's new to the Big 12. Like road environments for teams that are new to the Big 12, I'm not looking forward to that whatsoever. I don't care what your record is. I mean, give me Iowa State, give me Houston. I mean, at least we've played Houston a couple times recently. But like Iowa State, Baylor, Kansas State, like I don't care how good they are at the point that we play them, whether it's home or away, like they're very familiar opponents. Like I just feel much more comfortable there. It's the unfamiliar opponents that really scare the crap out of me.
The nice thing
Yeah.
is the new additions you have at home this year.
Yeah.
Well, except for Utah. You go on the road to Utah.
Colorado's at Colorado too.
And we've already played them at least once in the last couple of years. Yeah, I think the cop out answer is each game is the next toughest Big 12 game. The first game is the toughest, and then we'll keep going. Yeah, because to me, again, we can get into this in another episode. I don't even know how many wins it's going to take to win the Big 12 this year because it's just that deep. Again, you've got a team like K-State who's not top 25 right now, and I don't have the preseason Big 12 predictions pulled up in front of me right this moment because I want to do that in another episode. But I know K-State's going to be fighting for a spot in the Big 12 as well. So that's going to be one of the toughest road games. We know that for sure. And that's not even a top 25 ranked team yet. So I think this schedule's a gauntlet. I love it. It's going to be fun. I think it's good. Again, it's good for college basketball to have intense games all the time. And all of this should prepare you so much better for a deep run in March, which again, that's what it's all about. We know the expectations never change. We should be in a Final Four national championship every single year. We should be competing. On paper, KU has the roster for it. They are the preseason favorite. They have the best odds, or I guess you could say the worst odds to win the national championship. They are the betting favorite to win the national championship again. They are the betting favorite to win the Big 12. But everybody in the Big 12 feels like this is their year to compete. So I'm looking forward to it. We're going to obviously break down more of the schedule. We'll probably do some more, a couple episodes before the season starts, and then might touch on the Big 12 early on and then maybe do a Big 12 prediction. But before we get out of here, I do want to open it back up to you guys. Any other thoughts, things you want to get off before we get into the season?
I do want to bring up a game that kind of caught my eye. When is it? January 11th, we go on the road to Cincinnati. I don't believe we play Cincinnati at home. That game's going to be tough. I'm that's, not everybody's looking at that game, but Cincinnati's got a deep team too. And I think the good thing is I believe we have 3 days between the Arizona State and the Cincinnati game because we play Arizona State at home the Wednesday before that game. So we have some time to get ready for that. But Cincinnati on the road, and then
I forgot Dylan Mitchell transferred there.
Those two games are going to be tough. And then, of course, the Iowa State game, I feel like at this point, KU fans know that that's going to be a loss. And if that ends up being a win, it almost feels like an upset. And it sounds crazy for me to say that because most people think KU is better than Iowa State, of course. But I mean, playing at Iowa State is going to be hard. But there's not a whole lot of games on the schedule where we have to have a quick turnaround. I believe when we have 2 or 3 weekends where we have to worry about a quick turnaround. But I mean, it's going to be important to start off strong in conference play because I mean, you got West Virginia at UCF again. Gosh, that game at UCF last year still haunts me to this day. I couldn't believe it. KU needs to win that game for sure. I mean, yeah, literally every single game in the Big 12, we have to win that game, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but at Cincinnati, at Iowa State's going to be tough. And then I think the toughest home game on the schedule in terms of Big 12 play, that certainly has to be Houston, Arizona for senior day. Now I believe Bill Self's 39-0, 40-0 on senior night.
Never lost on senior night.
So, I mean, I'm optimistic that KU can beat Arizona because I feel like they're inevitable on senior night. But I mean, I'm not gonna get it too ahead of myself because sometimes those streaks can come to an end. And I don't want it to be this year. But Arizona's gonna have a good basketball team, and I'll be curious to see how they do in the Big 12. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how all 4 of the new teams make their transition. I don't know how good Colorado is. I know we play at Colorado on a Monday night. That's going to be a game where it's potential upset alert for KU. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how 4 of the new teams kind of fit into the season.
Do we not change senior night? We're not going to change our starting lineup at all.
We're going to put all of our seniors out there.
They're all seniors.
Yeah.
It's right?
Patrick Cassidy going out starting.
Oh my God!
Yeah, if
I would
Griffin
tell Patrick to sit
you
his
would come
butt
off the
down.
bench for that.
Yeah, I would. I look forward to the Duke matchup because I want to see who's going to take on Cooper Flag and who's.
KJ's shutting him down.
Yeah, I think Griffin Adams, Store, they're all going to take their cracks at him. I want to see him shut down because he's really good. I saw him wave off a screen and go one-on-one with Anthony Davis during USA basketball training camp. And so he's really good. He's going to be as good as advertised. So I'd love to.
Yeah, the Oklahoma City Thunder are hoping that the Clippers fail this year and get their draft lottery odds so they can get Cooper Flag. Yeah, I've been seeing already in the NBA. It's failing for Flag is the motto this year. You've had all those other ones in the past, but failing for Flag this year is what it's doing. But yeah, Spencer, any preseason takes you want to get off for now?
I would just say, and I'm not talking to JB in particular about this but everyone just needs to relax because with these high expectations, like these number 1 seed, it's just one loss will bring out the worst in people. And JB, I'm not saying that because you do that. You've never done but it's going to happen in one of these days. We're going to lose a game mid-January, and we're going to be calling for somebody's head.
We'll have at least
Hopefully
one JB clip this year of him overreacting to it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Yep. Same.
Yeah. JB, any other final thoughts?
I think we're good.
Okay. Well, we'll end it there. Again, a lot of KU basketball content coming this year, so make sure if you haven't done so yet, hit that like and subscribe button below so you can come back for all of our future episodes. I don't know how many we'll get to this year amongst all of us, but we're going to try and do a lot more quicker content just to be able to touch on all the stuff that's going on because this is a monster season for KU athletics, for KU basketball. There's still a lot of KU football left too. But KU basketball is going to quickly overtake the schedule, and we're going to be watching this with a fine-tooth comb. We're going to be magnifying glass, looking over every inch of this team, figuring out who's the starting 5, who's the best rotation, who are the guys getting minutes in Big 12 play, and we'll have to talk about next week Bill Self's comments about getting Hunter, KJ, and Dewan all under 30 minutes. So if there are other topics you guys, the listeners and the fans, would like us to cover or touch on or get our takes on, make sure you either leave us comments below. You can also hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at KCSA Pod. Feel free to DM any of the 4 of us. I'm at Keeganator_11, at Call Me John Bruno, Austin at Austin C. Eckert, Spencer at SGray_23. We would love to take any questions you guys have all throughout the basketball season, any takes you have. Would love for this to be as interactive. As much as we love sitting here and talking with each other about the basketball season, this year I would like to get the fans much more involved with us, whether that's coming on a podcast, it's joining us for a live, it's just being very active in the chat box below, or it's adding comments in. So would love to interact with you guys a lot more this year. And that can only happen if you choose to do so and give us a follow. So again, thank you guys for checking this one out. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials at KCSA Pod, and come back next week for plenty more KU basketball talk. Maybe we'll have some more KU football. Definitely some Chiefs, some Royals offseason. We have a Royals offseason episode planned this upcoming week with Chris Tenpenny. So a lot of exciting stuff. Make sure you come back for all of it. As always, rock chalk, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Rock chalk.
Okay.